This is Eric Ryder, and this week we're going to be taking a look back at the 1994 romantic comedy titled Reality Bites. Now, Reality Bites runs for 1 hour and 39 minutes long. It is directed by Ben Stiller. It is produced by Danny DeVito and Michael Schamberg. The script was written by Helen Childress. The score was done by Carl Wallinger. The cinematography by Emmanuel Lubezki. And the editing was done by Lisa Chugrin. And the stars of the movie are Winona Ryder, no relation, not Winona Ryder. And besides that, her last name isn't even really Ryder. Her last name's Horowitz. Anyhow, the other co-stars in this movie include Ethan Hawke, Janeane Garofalo. Ben Stiller is also in this as well. Steve Zahn. Let's see, who else is on this list? Swoosie, Kurtz, Joe Don Baker. We also have John Mahoney. Yes, that's right, the same guy who played Martin Crane on Frasier. Sadly, he died not too long ago. Yeah, very, very sad indeed. He will be missed by people in the comedy area. Yeah, also Renee Zellweger in one of her more earlier roles. She's not really like in a big part, but she's in there too. We also have some cameo appearances by comedian Andy Dick, actor Keith David. Let's see, we also have David Spade. He's in a very small role as well. And Janeane Tripplehorn. Now, back in 1994, I was only 17 years old. So this movie actually takes a look at the trials and tribulations of people, you know, around the time when I was young. I'm thinking somewhere in the early 1990s. We're looking at 20-somethings. Hey, these are my people. These are my people. We're from the Generation X era. I'm Generation X. And of course, many people like to sometimes think that we Generation X people had it easy. Well, I want to tell you something. Not true at all. No, we had it just as much as difficulty as the millennials, only except that we do not have the same technological advances that millennials had. No, I'm not here to try to ditch or diss the millennials in any way. You guys are cool too. But hey, Generation X people had just as much anxiety problems as the millennials do. I mean, we like to diss them, but hey, it was the baby boomers who dissed the Gen X, just like the silent era dissed the baby boomers. The silent era people used to think that the baby boomers had it easy. The baby boomers think that the Gen X had it easy. And then you also had the angst of the millennials also think that we Gen X had it easy, and yet we're the ones who are dissing them. But the reality is that in all aspects of life, we all suffer from angst at one capacity to the next. Okay, well, being that I was 17 years old in the twilight days of my high school year, I watched Reality Bites, and this movie kind of like was a bit of a friendly wake-up call to the stuff that's going to affect me in the years ahead. Because, you know, the next year I was going to, you know, went off to CJEP. I went to John Abbott College the following year. So this movie kind of like gave me this indication that, you know, has that bit of that coming of age thing that's implemented. So yeah, so this was a friendly wake-up call to the stuff that's going to affect me in the years ahead. Prior to this movie, ambition was running through my veins as fear and doubt about my future was in tow. And I guess this doesn't just apply to me as an individual, but I guess it applies to everybody else who is facing or soon to be facing this situation. As the days of graduation was upon me, I knew I needed some movie that might inspire me to be the very best I could be in whatever endeavors that come upon me. The scene that kind of hit me the most was when aspiring filmmaker named Leilani Pierce, played by Winona Ryder, she thought that she had her life mapped out by the time she was 23. She, of course, had this big ambition to be a documentary filmmaker. And, you know, she graduated top of the class. She was an honors student. And she thought that as soon as she graduated, got her degree, she was going to go right into the mainstream media. Only to realize that just because you've got the dream, you got the drive, doesn't always necessarily mean you got the job. You would like to think you got the job, but sometimes I guess in order to get the dream job, you have to go through a few small menial jobs that you may not necessarily want. But unfortunately, as the reality check comes in, it just does not organically come your way. Not everything is fed to you on a silver platter. And I think that's kind of like what the message is. No matter how ambitious you are, sometimes not everybody gets their dream job. Many people do get their dream jobs. Many people do have been blessed with good luck. But as a majority, not everybody always gets what they want, no matter how hard they work. And I'm not trying to be cynical. I'm not trying to spread false doubt upon anybody. But it's just the reality. You may have to do a few small menial jobs in order to get ahead to your big goal, the holy grail to your life. It just doesn't just come like right away. Or, oh, I have the resume, I have the credentials, and yada, yada, yada. No. You mean you can knock on so many doors, but you may not always get your dream job, and you may have to rely on other avenues in order to reach that goal. She thought she had her career set on a silver platter by her 23rd birthday, by the time she graduated. Only to realize that she needs a real reality check. Hence the title. In the opening scenes, she actually starts off by, doing a documentary on her friends and what life was like with them after school, after graduation. She is joined by her floundering but compassionate boyfriend named Troy Dyer, played for Ethan Hawke. He consoles to her sentiments by saying in a nutshell that you should only just be yourself at 23, not try to pretend to be something that you're not right at the moment. You know, those words were both poetic and hypnotic. Life doesn't necessarily always have to be on the fast lane. It's okay to take your time. You can't always get what you want. Not everything just comes to you organically. You have to strive. You have to knock on doors. You have to have resumes, cover letters, letters of intent. You gotta knock down doors and you gotta break down doors in order to reach your career goals. Otherwise, you're pretty much literally up shit's creek without a paddle. And I think that's kind of like what the universal message is in this movie. Okay, so we're first introduced to Lilana Troy, her boyfriend played by Ethan Hawke, a Vicky Minor played by Janeane Garofalo, and a Sammy Gray played by Steve Zahn. Okay, so they're chilling on a rooftop in downtown Houston, Texas, and they're collaborating with a few beers after graduating from college, while Alice Cooper's classic rock song "School's Out for Summer" is heard in the background. Lilana decides the perfect time to capture the four on film to discuss their plans for the future. She's doing this documentary on postgraduate life for 20-something Gen Xers. I mean, with me sitting there thinking, this could be me in a couple of years from now. And so they discuss exactly what they want to do in life now that they're all college graduates. Sammy just wants to find a career. Vicky, who currently works in the Gap, wants to memorize her social security number at full speed, while Troy, who's been working minimum wage jobs, is a few credits short from obtaining his philosophy degree, doesn't feel the necessity in finishing off his degree. I guess you could say that Troy kind of epitomizes the typical early 90s grunge era type character. I mean, he kind of just fits that platitude of the zeitgeist grunge era type kind of guy, philosophical, but also slack-jawed. In many ways, he could probably fit in the same ranks of maybe the inspiration comes from like these 90s era musicians, from your Kurt Cobain to your Soundgarden to your Red Hot Chili Peppers. He kind of really like fits into that mold, and I think he is actually very effective. He kind of personifies, he's got that look of a grunge guy. I mean, right now, currently, the job that he has in this movie was, I believe he's working as a bar musician. Of course, he's, like playing rock music since he's a grunge guy, so there you go. I mean, he even has that kind of look, the long hair, the mustache, the scraggly clothes, like a typical 90s grunge rocker. If that's the case, they should have just did the movie set in Seattle. But, well, captain them all. And not all the grunge guys came from Seattle. They came everywhere. But Seattle was the capital of grunge. Just saying. From the camera work of Lilani's opaque surroundings, the characters, they go to their journeys to explore the many avenues of postgraduate life. As the film takes off from there, Troy gets a job at a convenience store, only to get fired shortly after stealing a candy bar. He eventually moves into what is called the maxi pad with Lilana and Vicky, with the sexual urges between Lilani and Troy becoming more prominent while sharing moments of bickering and flirting. Lilana's filming career gets a head start when she gets hired by an executive by the name of Michael Grates, played by Ben Stiller, who works at a TV station very similar to that of MTV. Now, if you recall, MTV in the 1990s actually used to make music videos. Do they do that anymore? I think not. Most of MTV these days is now just a bunch of reality-based bullshit. But back in the 90s, MTV actually made music videos. Well, they did have some game show type stuff, but at least it was music related. But still, yes. So she gets hired from him, even though it was kind of basically by a default, because one time she was driving carelessly and she accidentally crashed into his expensive car. And, she was apologetic for her actions, but somehow still, he saw some potential into her and hired her on the job, just like right there. However, though, Leilani eventually does not get the job directing like she wants. Instead, she was given a job as a production assistant for feeding executive cue cards to her boss, played by John Mahoney, and then finds the young hopeful's dream severely crushed as she's sulking in her living room couch and having phone charges of $300 for phoning a sidekick. Psychic, not sidekick, psychic. Like, I see the real future. Never mind. I'm just joking on that part. At this time, I was like hoping for her external problems can be rejuvenated with a metaphoric angel coming to her way to deliver the message of hope. Sadly, that angel never materialized. Well, that metaphoric angel, well, okay, maybe there was a metaphoric angel. It was Michael again, and this time he showed her documentary to the upper echelons of his network, and they want to actually buy her footage. And this is just basically her footage of her interviewing her best friends about what they plan to do for the future in college after graduating from college. And yeah, from there they decided to take her documentary into the studios and make it into a program. They want to take her video and put it on air. The thing that kind of disappointed her, however, was that instead of making it into a documentary based on her four friends, Michael turns his back against her, and they decide to go from a documentary to a TV sitcom comedy, much to the chagrin of her demands. Excited, she attends the premiere of her documentary, only because she'd be shocked that it was tweaked from a film about the struggling life of Generation X to a reality show based on programs with her friends being reduced to individual segments of their lives, from the apathetic rebel to the sex-crazed party girl to the ambitious overachiever to the token gay guy. Leilani cries her way home to find Troy alone in the apartment. Their on again, off again relationship finally settles, and they end up sleeping with each other. The romantic, now this whole situation can be regarded kind of as a bit of a, I guess you could say kind of a bit of a cliche. And why do I consider this to be a bit of a cliche? It's because it seems like in every romantic comedy that I have ever encountered, there's always something that I like to call pity sex. Now, do you know what pity sex is? Pity sex is during the midway points of the romantic comedy, that when a couple bickers and they fight, and they all say, "Oh, I never want to see you again." "Yeah, same here with me. Fuck you. Fuck you too. Fuck you on the double." Then they go off, they go into their separate lives, and then they find out that life on their own is just not the same. They come back, they reconcile, they neck to neck, and then they have pity sex. And in this movie, the pity sex comes at the right time, at the right place, and voila, they reconcile the differences. So yes, whenever you watch a romantic comedy, be prepared for pity sex. These two friends encounter, the pity sex that these two friends encounter is pretty much sums up with the series of tranquil moments of peace and serenity. But then out in left field, Troy leaves her, which definitely causes a bit of a rift as she is trying to get her life back together again. After a nasty breakup, Troy decides to just go back to Chicago to go visit his dying father, which Leilana didn't know. She thought that maybe he was dumping her. But no. His departure is definitely much more serious than that. He's going back to Chicago to go visit his father who's dying. And, that's sad. I have to admit that. So he eventually returned to her yard as she was trying to find him in hopes to reconcile their friendship. Now, the thing about reality bites that really strikes harder than a thunderbolt is that not all broken relationships can be repaired. And this kind of is the thing that happens in a lot of romantic comedies, that, when a couple breaks up, they tend to reconcile. Well, it's not as easy as that in reality. In a lot of relationships, broken friendships cannot always be repaired. They either had their chance, they blew it, and move forward. But in romantic comedies, they may bicker, they may part ways, but then they come back into each other's arms. It's like a cliche. Once again, we see this happen. So after an abrupt breakup, my girlfriend moved away, and we lost contact forever without a reason of explanation. Not that I wouldn't be heartbroken if an explanation or a Dear John letter would be sufficient, but would have some disclosure, and I would move forward with my life. At least Troy did make amends with Lilana and came back into her life. Although I kind of was hoping that there would have been a more reality-based thing where he didn't. Because, to be honest with you, I never really quite liked Troy Dyer's character that much either. I'm not saying the other characters were really, all that likable. But I don't know, I had this kind of funny feeling deep inside that I do not care for a reconciliation between Troy and Lilana. What sickens me the most is that why was Troy the inevitable puzzle piece for Lilana? Well, I'm okay with the happy ending, and I'm sure that the message of love being the glue to moments of insecurity, and to take the important stuff of where we go from here. But still just a lot of hyperbole to the max. My envy for Latina made me wish our worlds were reversed. Troy didn't hold up to his compromises. But only time will tell. Don't expect his car to pull up on your driveway. You see, this is the thing that kind of irks me a little bit about this movie. Why was it that Troy had to be the key to her finding happiness? Do you think he can actually provide for her? I mean, the guy obviously has no reason or ambitions to finish college to get his philosophy degree. Instead, he's just going to be jumping from one job to another for the rest of his life. What kind of a lifetime will that be for him and Lilana? And Lilana is just going to keep trying to continue to push and strive her goals to be a documentary filmmaker. But she's going to probably have to come to the realizations that not everything all comes together just for her sake. It just does not seem all that organic. As much as you would like to think that, you have to get into some sort of reality check. When it comes to like characters and all, I have to say, there was a lot of realism in there. And I thought the acting worked out very much, very, very well. Winona Ryder, no, she's not related to me. Sorry. If she was related to me, I would have said to her, put it back. If you know what I mean by saying put it back, of course, many years ago, she was caught shoplifting. Huh. You think a girl with a lot of money would actually go out and purchase clothes instead of fucking shoplifting? No, I would actually tell her, put it back. I don't care if I'm younger than you. Let's see, Ethan Hawke, like I said, he kind of did fit the grunge era type of look. He kind of even physically kind of looked like grunge era guys like the Kurt Cobains and the Chris Cornells and the Red Hot Chili Peppers and all those other grunge era things like that. I mean, this movie definitely is pure early 90s. From the scraggly clothes that we wore in the grunge era, to the angst, to the trials and tribulations of Gen X life, to the fact that our worlds are starting to change. Back in the days when we did not have the technological advantages that we have today. Yes, we still had to carry those fucking hard paperback books that will break our back. And yes, when we handed in assignments, most of us had to hand it in hand printed. And yes, I had to have these fucking teachers ostracize me because I have bad handwriting. Hi. But still, um, I guess when it comes down to it, people from the Gen X era also had to struggle to achieve our goals. But I think every generation is struggles to achieve their goals and their ambitions in life. It's not going to be handed to you in a silver platter. You have to earn it. And sometimes not all dreams come true. And I'm not trying to be a Danny Downer here, but the reality is nobody gets everything to them handed to them. Everything that you have, you have to earn. And sometimes not everything comes out the way you want it. I think that's the kind of the lesson to be learned in this movie. And I think it was fleshed out very well. Sure, it had its imperfections, but it did get me invested. And it takes me kind of back into a time when I was younger. I mean, these guys were just a tad bit older than I was, but still, you know, this was the wake-up call to what I will encounter a little bit later on in life. So if I was to give this a rating system, I would definitely give Reality Bites a 7 out of 10. So I guess this ends my Ryder review. I'd like to thank you all for listening in. If you wish to subscribe to my channel, please feel free to do so. If you wish to leave a comment, go right ahead. But just remember, be kind, be courteous, and please refrain from any rude comments. And I will be back again with another movie review. So until next time, this is Eric Ryder saying, keep watching those movies, and I'll see you around. Goodbye.